Video number 3 of the night. Now this is something that I've never done before. I am going to do a build video. Now this isn't the main build that I usually run. That one's being saved for another time. I'm actually waiting until the update comes out because there's going to be a lot of changes coming to it, and I feel doing a video at this time is a little premature. But this fun little build that I've been running lately here in Chult, I will definitely share, because if it's one thing about a game, it's that you should want to have fun. Oop, I got smacked a little bit. That's not cool. This is a Scoundrel build, which, if aside from maybe some PvP players, doesn't really get used. One of the reasons is because in this game, control effects don't work against bosses, so it's a little bit at a disadvantage. But if you're running around like a place like the River District, or you're running around here and Twitch is making me lag out, it really melts. And I'm sure that, you know, my Executioner class would melt just as well, but this one's kind of flashy and it's kind of fun. So as you can see from the lightning chains, I am not using a Vorpal, which a lot would argue that it does more damage, which that's true. But when you're attacking mobs, you're gonna kill them faster. You may not be dealing much damage, but you're dealing more damage in a given amount of time. I don't know how to explain it. I could just stand there and it would just be a slower process. I would deal a lot more damage, but I'd have to attack everything from a single point. Whereas with this, you get, you know, the multiple chains off attacking one enemy. It just kind of clears out all the fodder when you run a duelist flurry on one of these big bastards. And I'm not doing my rotation properly because, like I've said in my previous videos, I can't play and talk at the same time. And I'm sorry about that. But what I am going to do is sneak into here, and we're going to get into it. So, good old character sheet. So as far as my gear goes, I am a cheap, lazy person. So you will not see any vivified armor. For the most part, you're going to see either crafted armor or stuff out of a dungeon. So right now I'm running Jarl's Gaze, or Jarl's Gaze, until I get the Rex Corona from the King of Spines hunt. I'm running Moorlance Shroud just because I love the added recovery and the 14 armor class. And if you know, armor class affects your damage mitigation. So I'd rather have 14 armor class for my mitigation than trying to stack defense, because if a piece of armor is already going to come with 14 AC, I might as well let it contribute to it. If I'm in a party, we're going to hit the limit for mitigation anyways, so you know, I might as well just have this, especially when I'm soloing. And like I said, I like the added recovery. And a lot of the stuff, these drops are well over 400. So that's always nice if you care about item level. I don't really, not so much. Plus, I do like some of the stats of this armor. Just, you know, if I am doing anything in Sea of Moving Ice or Storm King's Thunder, Jarl's Gaze helps out a lot with its buff. Moorlance Shroud, not so much. I mean, I do find myself sometimes when I less than 10% health, and it does help a little bit. I did have Survivor's Wraps on here. I went with the Pilgrim Assault ones for the 100 power for each enemy you're engaged in battle with, mostly for this build for running around getting mobs. But the Survivor Wraps actually negatively affects one of my companions, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. It also affects my armor enchant, which I didn't even tell you about. My armor enchant is a Transcendent Bark Shield. Saved my rear end multiple times. Great for soloing bosses. Great for soloing the hunts in Chult. And that's one of the things about the Survivor Wraps. The Survivor Wraps actually damage you over time for 10 seconds as a penalty for having such high power base stat on that item. And it actually trips the Bark Shield. so I had to get rid of that. And it affects the Earth Archon. I'll actually talk about that now. It affects the Earth Archon because the Earth Archon is when you're at full health, you deal more damage. Well, you're not at full health when you pop that daily and that Survivor's Wraps triggers, so had to get rid of that. I'm still running the Aboleth set from the River District. I know that the weapons are very important from the Stronghold weapons, the new ones that give you the buff. Titan Steel, the Titan Steel ones. That would be my next one, but right now these are still working really well for me, so I may just wait for the next set of weapons if that comes out. I think maybe in mod 13, because these are doing just fine right now. If I feel that I'm really being, if it's really that big of a difference, I'll take the time and get the Titan Steel set. The boots, I'm using the bone spurs that drop from the hunt in here, 480 item level. The armor penetration, I use that. If you watched one of my previous videos, I talked about how the enemies in Chult, especially like the Tyrannosaurus, their damage, the amount of armor pen that you have to overcome in there, it fluctuates. So for you to get to that point, you need something that'll help jack up your armor pen. So I use this one, when you damage or heal your target for more than 15% of your maximum hit points in a single blow, you gain 1% armor penetration for 10 seconds. And it stacks up to 5. So 5% more armor pen than what I got now. So definitely a nice little bonus. I do like the critical strike that's on there. And of course, all these newer items have a lot more hit points, which is definitely going to benefit my character to try and help keep me alive. I have quartermasters in there. In my arms, I have the rank 12 Fey Blessing in there. And for my overload slots, I keep a Greater Corrupt Black Ice, and I keep a Greater Corrupt Lethal Enchantment, unless I'm in a specific dungeon where an overload slot enchantment, like for demons or giants, is going to benefit me. Then I have my Dragon Horde rank 12 in my head as well. So I keep one of each of those really main refinement gaining enchantments. As for my artifacts, these fluctuate. I test a lot of them pretty quickly. Right now, I'm trying to work on a build for mod 12B with the bonding nerf. So I'm trying to focus on where I need to have my power and crit, because I got to keep my crit at 90%, and I have to keep my armor pen at least 85. Right now I'm running it at about 90, I think, and then it'll bump up depending on what happens. Just because with the Tyrannosaurus, you have to reach up to, I think it's about 105 or 175%. So armor pen's definitely important with this new mod, and probably going forward. So a lot of these you're going to see power and armor pen, power and crit. This one I swap out when I'm testing some things, but I like the deflection. It's one of the key stats that I need. And then of course I have to have my Shard of Orcus wand. As much as I'd love to have something more than 1,000 movement, I need that bonus when tied with my belt and my neck. So my neck, I have action point gain jewels in all the items that can take the jewels. And in here, sorry I didn't talk about my reinforcement kits. Really, I just put in reinforced kits based on the stat that I need. It's usually power in there. I haven't really had to stack anything else in there. This one had armor penetration just because I need a little bit of an extra boost. I could probably replace that since I am above the 85%. In my rings, I was running the Masterwork rings, but then I saw these Cursebringer rings and they do stack, so I keep 2 of them on me. I tried testing them on companions. It didn't seem like it worked, but they do still have good stats, so I do have one on my companion. In here for my utility slots, I just have darks in these to help increase my movement. And then in all of my defensive slots, I'm running silvery enchantments. I need to get all of them up to rank 12, but I wanted to move my 12 to my companion just to get that extra increased in deflect. I'm not using the shirt that everybody usually has. This one has deflection, whereas usually people run the ones with like this one that has the critical strike. 190 doesn't make that big of a difference for me to warrant just buying it. I mean, I know it's not expensive, but you know, I'm not going to worry about it. They are reinforced with damage resistance for Everfrost, just because that's the only thing it can take, and I might as well have that for if I do find myself in Sea of Moving Ice or any of Stormking's Thunder. But yeah, defense 12, silvery, and I have a mix in here of Azures and or Azure, whatever you want to call them, and Radiance. But moving on to the stats themselves, and the ability points I have in Strength right now and Charisma. I do that just to add a little bit bonus to the stats for my companion. I know it doesn't make that large of a difference, but I don't know. The amount of dex, if I put anything in dexterity here, the only thing I'd really have to do is replace an Azure in one of my companions for a Radiant, and I'd much rather have the combat advantage bonus. That'll stack with my strength bonus. I know you don't get a lot for the combat advantage, but in this build and most time when you're playing, you're going to have combat advantage, so might as well have that little bit of bonus. I still keep my deflection chance like I do with dexterity, and like I said, the companion stat bonus is just that little bit extra. Health points, is kind of low, but I mean, either way, the amount of damage that Trickster Rogue mitigates, you take one good hit from a boss, you may go down. And especially now with the Bark Shield, I haven't had to worry that much. So my health points are really just there in case of like AoE or if I get jumped by too many mobs. Unprocced for my companion, these stats don't look that amazing. So I'll probably go face something here in a moment so you can see what they are procced. If I go into my powers, I mean, my powers don't really shift very much. I usually use Dazing Strike, Smoke Bomb, and Blitz for mobs, just because I run that Lightning enchant. So the Dazing Strike and the Blitz procs the Lightning. Apparently there's a rumor that maybe mod 13, who knows, maybe mod 12b, it'll actually proc on Path of Blades and Smoke Bomb. So here's fingers crossed, hoping, praying. For my at-wills, of course, I have Duelist Flurry. Especially with Lightning, you hit the strongest enemy in the group, and you're just going to chain and kill off the little guys with the Lightning. And then a lot of people will actually have Sly Flourish as their other at-will, but I just use Cloud of Steel. I don't find myself... I'd rather get my Duelist Flurry stacks than worrying about the damage debuff. Because either way you have to do so many hits with each at-will that the amount of time that I have before I have to kill the enemy or that I will kill the enemy, I don't have time for Sly Flourish. I really don't. I mean, sometimes I may put it on for like a big heavy boss just to help out the group a bit. But other than that, it's Cloud of Steel just because I'm going to dodge out of the way at some point and I want to still be dealing damage. Lurker's Assault I keep on hand just because of, well, actually multiple reasons. One, because the stealth meter regeneration, the damage output, and the fact that a lot of times what I'll do is I'll end up dodging away, and then when I fire off Lurker's Assault, I actually teleport to the enemy I'm looking at. So it kind of flows into how I do my rotation. The other one is Whirlwind the Blades. Of course, I love the increase of damage and gaining the power for each enemy that I hit. Courage Breaker's getting a nerf, so I don't know if I'll be putting that back into my rotation. If I'm trying to solo or keep in a dungeon where I'm with a really bad pickup group, like Cragmire Crypts, and I have to face the boss alone, I'll use Bloodbath just because I can't take damage while I'm doing executing that move. And as far as other encounters, I will switch out my Blitz for a Lashing Blade, but I pretty much keep Dazing Strike and Smoke in there. For my feats, it's still up in the air if people believe action advantage works or not. I haven't really needed it. The 10% extra action points gained, I tested it with this combat advantage build. It didn't seem to make much of a difference. Did need those extra health points, hit points. Increased my critical chance, definitely, since I took the hit in dexterity to go for charisma. I just put one into swift footwork just because I needed to get to the next tier. Of course, you have to have cunning ambusher. I don't care what build you're in. 6% more damage. Yes, thank you. 6% more damage for counter powers, definitely. I don't really see the need for Twilight Adept because I don't utilize the stealth mechanic as to keep hidden as much as to other abilities. So it would be nice to refill it faster, but I like the added deflection, and since I'm not a human, I don't have as much points to go around. I may be switching to a human, but to be brutally honest, if you want my opinion, it does not matter which class you go or which race you go with so much. I mean, if you're really big into min and maxing, I kind of am, so that's why I went Dragonborn. You can go with half orc, but when it comes down to it, it doesn't make that large of an impact, so kind of just pick what you want. But if you want to min or max, go half orc or Dragonborn. If you want those extra feat points, you feel that one extra point in Scoundrel training and one extra point in Lucky Skirmisher, go for it. And of course, like I said, this is a Scoundrel build, so most of you are familiar with going about this far to back alley tactics, no matter whether you go Saboteur or Executioner. But we moved forward a little bit to Concussive Strikes, just so that way we can end up dazing a foe when we crit and or if we attack from behind. Low blows. This is the one that hurts when you're going against a boss, since bosses cannot be affected by control effects, and I tested this with Courage Breaker. It still didn't work. We lose out on 25% damage. So really, this is only good. You'd want to switch it out at a campfire. But to be honest, I've been running big dungeons without switching out, just testing it, and I've done just fine. It might hurt me in the Pain Giver, but especially if you're fighting a boss that does have mobs with it, those ads will get stunned, so you're definitely supporting your team still with the Scoundrel path. Skullcracker, I mean, to be brutally honest, I've tested it. I mean, you don't necessarily need the last one, but you've got that one extra point and it's right there. You might as well use it. So Skullcracker, your next encounter dazes a target for 4 seconds. Your attack extends this daze. You deal 25% more damage to people affected by this daze. So if you daze with Skullcracker, and this one here, they're dazed, they're affected by a control effect, that's 50% more damage output. Because it doesn't matter which control effect that is coming from low blows. And so if my Cursebringer rings are going off and paralyzing people, if my stuns are going off, I've even thought about trying out the Manicore Companion, for knocking them prone, but I think they knock them away, so I might try the Direwolf, which causes an interrupt, which it won't affect Skullcracker or anything, but that's, I don't know, I'd have to test that. Still thinking about testing that. And then of course, it increases your movement speed, which is nice. So definitely a lot of people will use Scoundrel when they're doing PvP, but when the crowd control nerf comes out, I think there's going to be less people running it. It depends on how it pans out. Now, I could have gone Saboteur to deal more damage with my at-wills, but I'm actually doing more damage with my counter powers, so it's not really worth it too much. Entering stealth, reducing cooldowns is nice, but my recovery, it's not where I really want my recovery to be in this build, but it's still enough that I'm going to benefit more from dealing 5% more damage and increasing my criticals. When I deal critical strikes, increasing my power rating. I'm going to benefit more from that. And then Death Knell, I use this to kind of take advantage of the AoE aspect of this build. So especially if you're in a dungeon, or well, mostly when you're in a dungeon, or especially like Illusionist Gambit, when you have great weapon fighters and stuff, you know, bringing down those health points really fast. If I'm hitting all enemies at once and they're below 30% HP, you know, I'm dealing that extra 25% more damage. I'm usually the one with the highest amount of kills. And it sounds kind of cruel, but I like it because it kind of snakes kills away from people. A lot of times, especially even with other Trickster rogues running Duelist Flurry, they're waiting for that bleed tick to fire off, and I actually end up killing them before their bleed tick does, so I actually end up doing more damage in the Pain Giver, even though I'm not dealing as much damage as they would have. So yeah, it's kind of cruel, but I'm still supporting my team by keeping them dazed, so I deserve it. I'll move on to boons. Oh man, we're hitting 21 minutes. I don't know how long these build videos usually are, but I'm sorry. Guild boons, yes, I have a good guild, so I'm running my power bonus. Whoa, calm down. I'm running my power bonus, and for defense, I'm doing my lifesteal. This boon alone, maxed out, is giving me the minimum requirement I need for my lifesteal, which is 20%. So that means all other defensive attributes can be focused into deflect. The reason I do that is because when it comes to damage mitigation, the amount of damage resistance you have is not affected by deflect. So I could still have my level of mitigated damage, and then on top of that have my deflect. And as a Trickster rogue, we automatically have, when we deflect, we mitigate 75% of that damage. Just poof, gone. And if you take a potion like Foehammer's Elixir, it's going to bump that up, I believe, to 85. So definitely want to stack defense. So if you are in a high level guild, you get that lifesteal boon, then every defensive thing you can focus on should always be your deflect. Because like I said earlier, if you're in a good enough group, they're going to buff you, take care of your damage, resistance. Just focus on your deflect. That's going to be the best thing for you. Utility, I might switch back to experience points just so I can knock out getting all of my power points, get that out of the way, and I'm just going to switch back to my mount speed. That seems to be, I don't need gold ever since they did the whole thing with trading in guild marks with the resource vendors and stuff. I mean, gold is kind of worthless at this point. Group heal's nice. I run that sometimes if I'm in a really bad pickup group, just to kind of help. I'll like toss out some potions or something. I don't know. If I'm in a really bad pickup group, I just walk. I'm sorry, I just walk. Revive sickness. I don't die that often, so I really don't use it. And we don't have any PvP boons. We're not a really big PvP guild. And as you can see, I've only got one PvP boon. Sharndar campaign, I'm going to go for power. Pretty much anything that gives you a choice of power or crit, I'm going to take power or crit. Action point gain. Now this is always up for debate, I see in different builds. When being struck by a foe, you don't want to be struck by a foe. And a lot of times it may not say it, but some of this stuff isn't affected by damage over time, and sometimes not even AoE. I've done some testing where it doesn't seem to proc even off AoE, so they're like, why would you want to do 20,000 more damage? It's just so little of damage because it's only a chance, and a chance usually means 25%. Well, that's 25% more likely I'm going to deal 20,000 more damage. Why not? I'm not planning on getting hit. It's a 25% chance when I do get hit. So, yeah, sure, I'm going to deal more damage. Why not? Final boon, I tested Faith Thistle because, like I said, I focus on deflect. Anything where you deal damage from deflecting attack, my deflect is there just to save my rear. I'm not deflecting a lot because I'm not getting hit a lot. Especially in this build, you're stunning your mobs. They're not really hitting you. I've gone to some parts in Chult fighting huge mobs, and they'll just stand there stunned in days. I'm not taking damage. When I do take damage, I'm getting hit hard, and, you know, the Faith Thistle doesn't work, so I actually go with Elvish Fury. When you kill a foe, you gain 135 power for 45 seconds, stacks up to 30 times. This build is meant for big, large groups. You're killing a lot of them. You're moving from group to group. This is going to help your damage output greatly. Dread Ring. Of course, power. This one, regeneration, no. I don't need the lifesteal, but I also don't need regeneration, so I go ahead and toss it in lifesteal. This one here, resistance ignored, of course, because we're dealing with Chult. I want to go ahead and do that. Yes, 3% deflect would be nice, but I need all the armor pen resistance ignored I can get. Shadow Touch is kind of standard. When dealing damage, you have a chance to deal up to 20,000 necrotic damage over a few seconds. After this effect ends, the target receives 25% less healing from spells for 10 seconds. This one, of course, is just like the other one. When taking damage, you shouldn't be taking damage. Don't, and especially with this build, if you're running Bark Shield, if you do take damage, your Bark Shield's going to eat it up. You'll be fine. Might as well try and kill things a little bit faster. This one, gain lifesteal, blah, don't need it. Your healing spells have a chance to burn and blah, blah. Augmented Thane Bastion. Okay, I do like Augmented Thane Bastion. I've used it before. It procs frequently. It is really nice. You could stack this with the Bark Shield, and it could help you solo Orcus. I've gotten pretty good at battling Orcus, so I've gotten rid of the Bastion and just switched to dealing more damage. This one, when you deal damage, you gain a stack of Madness. Once you reach 50 stacks, gain 4,000 power, 4,000 lifesteal, and 4,000 regeneration. For 10 seconds after gaining this bonus, your stacks are reset, and you may only get this one per second. I hate the once per second part of it, but, I mean, going group to group, it still stacks up. Helps you clear those stacks and get those bonuses. Icewind Dale campaign. AoE resist. Yeah, we're stunning them enough. We don't need them. Combat advantage bonus. Yeah, you don't need to stack it over 1200. I know this, but it still counts if you stack over 1200. It's just not enough. Yes, I've heard it. I know. You might tell me about it. I know. Stamina gain. Now, there's a couple of things in here, in these boons, that I'm going to go over. Is reason why I don't stack a lot of stamina gain. So I go for incoming healing. Incoming healing affects if you're being healed by your team or any outside source or companion, but it also helps very little to your lifesteal. So since I've already hit my 20% for lifesteal, I would actually switch to incoming healing bonus just because it helps my team keep me alive if we're in a really dire situation. Recovery, yeah, that'd be nice, but I want to make sure that my critical severity is at its 150-160% range. This helps. And here's one of those moves I was telling you about. You gain 200 power based on how much stamina or guard you're missing. Now, I'm pretty sure every Trickster Rogue does this because we're not great weapon fighters here. We're dodging a lot. So if I'm dodging, I'm getting rid of my stamina meter, and if I'm not using something that fills it up very fast, I'm going to be able to maintain that power rating for longer. And I really don't need to dodge very frequently. Like I said, we're stunning a lot of enemies. We're good. And then, because the other option is, once again, if you're damaged by a foe, you have a chance. No, thank you. Now, I did try Rousing Warmth. It didn't work the way I wanted, and I think that's because there's an internal cooldown, at least from what I can tell. Even when I put on my Lilin companion to heal me, and she heals pretty well, I don't see rousing warrants pop up that often. Once again, it's a chance when healed. If it did work, I know it's only 3,000 damage, but if you're getting an extra 3,000 damage and life stealing, healing from life stealing, and hitting over and over with your AoE, it should work. It doesn't appear to. So I go to Winter's Bounty. Chance to gain 10% action points, which is awful. 25% chance of gaining 10% when killing a target. But it works in Chult. You're killing enough enemies, 25% chance, it actually helps because your other options in here, wind damage, no thank you. Drinking healing potions, really? No. Maybe if there wasn't a cooldown on healing potions, I could see this being worth it. Underdark campaign. Power, of course. Crit, of course. Combat advantage damage bonus increased by 10%. So not just a stat. So I know, hit that 12%. This is a percentage increase. So that's why I went with it. Of course, the other options, regeneration. No thank you. If you're PvP build, go for it. Control effects will now have 5% shorter durations on you. Use it for PvP. May not need it for PvP come next update. Other options, regain stamina 5% faster. I probably just picked this because I was half asleep, to be honest. It really didn't matter at that point. Like I said, I don't need to gain stamina just because I want that added power, and in a future one here, recovery. Underdark, if you're familiar with it, yes, 10% damage versus all demons is better than having a chance to take it outright. Demons do 5% damage to you. I don't care what you are. If Demogorgon's going to smack you, he's going to smack you, and he's probably going to kill you. So that 5% doesn't help. Gain 25% control bonus versus demons. Alright, so this one's a little bit up to debate with this build. You're controlling a lot of enemies. That just extends the potency of it. But honestly, 10% more damage, it's still going to be better. Tyranny of Dragons. Power, of course. Crit, of course. Armor penetration, we're in Chult, of course. Regen, screw off. Lifesteal rating, don't really need it, but we also really don't need regen. Now for this one, a lot of people will choose all in the same one. If you look at how much it increased per tier, it's really not that worth getting. Control strength, it does bump up 2.5, whereas this one only jumps up 1.5. So, we need that increased control strength for this build. So yes, I went with that one. The other option was increased incoming healing. Nah, lifesteal, we don't need it. I mean, if you don't have the guild boon, feel free to put in the option for that 3%. But you still want to keep for this build at least one control, one severity. Maze engine, incoming healing over severity. Severity in this build is kind of useless just because the amount of damage we deal, if we are hitting at that 100%, we're gaining all of our life back. Severity is not really needed. It would just take us over amount. We don't have 10 hit points. It would be useless. Combat advantage over control effects. Pick your poison, if you really feel it's not going to make that difference being over 1200 combat advantage, or depending on how you decide to pick your artifacts, pick your poison there. Stamina regeneration, of course, no, we don't really need that. Gain action points 3% faster, yeah, definitely. This one, striking a foe, you have a chance to gain 2,000 critical strike. We're doing alright, critical strike. It's a 25% chance. We deal a lot of quick damage, so you're going to have that 2,000 in rotation pretty frequently. You can go for it. Healing spells, no thank you. Below 30% health, gain a shield, increasing damage resistance. Once again, your damage resistance is already going to be taken care of by your group. If you are getting hit, your deflect is going to take it, and your damage resistance is going to just pick up the slack from that 75 to 85% you're not deflecting. So we go 10% increased control strength. Let's keep these foes dazed. So elemental evil, we're going to go power, of course. Don't need regeneration, so we'll go with more lifesteal severity. Why not? 400 critical strike or 400 recovery. Now, based on the tests that I've been doing and what I need, I'm doing fine on crit, but I was doing low in recovery, so I chose this one. So pick whatever you need the stat in. This one, chance to gain lifesteal severity, we don't need it. Chance, 10% stamina gain, and taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 24,000 hit points, which is substantial over a few seconds. After this effect ends, your critical strike is increased for 1,000 for 10 seconds. Now, I did like this one when using Rousing Warmth from the Icewind Dale campaign, but like I said, it seems Rousing Warmth has an internal cooldown, so even Gale of Retribution here didn't seem to be proccing it very well. Of course, once again, it's a chance. This one, I needed the extra recovery, even though it's a chance and it's when taking damage. I still heal my hit points, but get my recovery, so I went with that one. Storm King's Thunder, control resistance, we went with the lifesteal severity. Why not gain more life? I don't know. I'm not really being controlled by mobs and enemies that much. Even when facing the Yuan Ti and Chult, it's not that long. I don't know. It didn't really matter. I guess, you know, if I did respec this character for any reason, I probably would choose the control resistance just because it does make more sense than the lifesteal severity. Stamina gain, no. Incoming healing, not, you know, I've already said it before. We'll go with that one. You gain 2,000 recovery based on how much stamina or guard you're missing. That's just like the other one where with power, so I went with that. Chance when taking damage to give a 2,000 bonus. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, no, we're good. This one, when you kill a foe, you have a chance to deal up to 2,000 fire damage to all nearby enemies. Now, this, for this type of build, would work really well, but I did need the extra HP. If I did respec, I'd probably pick Vengeful Heat for this build, just for that extra damage for mobs and big groups. Chill of Winter, as you can see, I've only got one of these. I haven't finished Storm King's Thunder here. Striking a foe, you have a chance to gain a stack of Icy Chill. At 10 stacks, your next attack clears all and releases a burst to all targets there. So, I mean, with this build, that's definitely good. Everything else is kind of nah, don't worry about it. Cloaked Ascendancy, kill an enemy, you know, stuns them. With this build, we want to keep enemies stunned as much as possible. Yes, the AP gain would be nice, but from what I've talked to with people, it only actually helps your allies. It doesn't help you. I'll have to test it personally, but, you know, as much as I am for helping my team, I would like to have that assistance as well. 2% critical strike severity is, you know, pretty important. And this one, like I said, I don't need the lifesteal, so I went with the recovery route. These two, screw these two. I hate these kind of boons that only work for certain, I mean, yeah, it works a little bit, but anything that's like, oh, it's only for dinos, it's only for aberrant creatures, it's only for demons, it's like, you know what, give me something better. So I went with this route. When you deflect an attack, you regain up to 8,000 hit points. The other option would be critical strike. My stamina regenerates faster, yes. But when we look back at those previous stats, I want that power and recovery. So screw stamina, we're going with that one. And then Jungle's a Chult. So what I will be picking when I unlock it is the power. If you look at this, it goes from 500 to 750. See, this is another one. Dinosaur damage. No thank you. Regeneration. No thank you. Defense against dinosaurs. Definitely no thank you. You gain deflect. Yeah. And definitely not the defense one. So if we look at the amount of increase that you get between these, I'm probably going to go ahead and just throw it all into Tyrant's Terror. And just get up to that 1,000 power. Definitely going to need it after the power drop in 12B when the bonding runestones get nerfed. I calculated it. I'm going to have to ditch 2,000 of my power in order to maintain my armor pen and critical strike chance. So, you know what? Bring on the power. Going to need it. This one up here, I'm going to have to test some of these out, to be honest. I'm not even really going to go over these. I'll probably do a follow-up video on just these after I've had a chance to test them out, because some of these look pretty interesting. Some of them, of course, have a chance, so I want to see how well those work out. So we won't worry about those ones yet. I will do a follow-up video on those. Companions. Alright, since the last update, we got to get all of these guys to Legendary. This one here, I need more upgrade tokens. I just need 17 more, and I'll be able to get that extra 1% damage increase. So if you don't know, one legendary is going to get you 16. You're going to get half of that. Another one's going to give you 8% damage increase. The other one 4%, 2%, then 1. So I've got these all legendary here. I'm running a con artist right now. I do hate that this is a defense slot, but I gotta love the 3 ring slots here. I am running the Rings of Adorable Bites. Yes, they cost a lot of Astral Diamonds. Yes, I kind of regret the purchase, but it sure beats farming Illusionist Gambit. And if you saw my previous rant video, you know I'm probably not setting foot back into Illusionist Gambit. Right now, I've just got a Ring of the Cursebringer in here, just because it's got a decent amount of crit and recovery on him. I needed the extra recovery, and I did want to test out if the Ringbringer's partial paralysis worked. It doesn't appear that it does, but it's still a good ring, so I'm leaving it in there until I get something better. But he is sitting at all rank 12s, and yeah, so that's my main. I use the Archon setup like most people do. I've got the Fire Archon, Air Archon, and the Earth Archon. Now here's something that I was thinking about testing. The amount of damage output that this build does, it can clear mobs really freaking fast. Like really fast. And they did fix the Archon bonus that where if you read down here it says increase your damage against targets not at full health by 5%. Each additional Archon gets you a bonus. They did fix that, so you do get that bonus. So what I was actually thinking about trying, and I don't know if it'll actually work. Everybody hates the Water Archon. I was going to try that 3% bonus that it gives you, and because I would be getting an extra 1.5 bonus from my other Archons. So if I run in there, maybe throw on First Strike as one of my powers, and just see if I can eliminate that group in one hit with all those chains of lightning. I'm going to test that out, see how it does, but I don't know if it's going to make up for the 4% damage that I'm getting from him. Also, since it's 8% if I'm in the Stronghold. I already went over a little bit ago. Earth Archon, you do not want anything that gives you damage because he will be useless. And then Air Archon, targets that are not at full health. Well, if you're doing damage, or anybody else is, they should not be at full health. That does remind me real quick, I did not go over what I use for these. I use Infiltrator's action, Invisible Infiltrator. I do that because I want to gain that combat advantage. Everybody's like, well, you're already doing combat advantage when you're behind them. Yeah, but you're not doing that to all enemies. This build is based on doing AoE. So if you can have combat advantage from this action on all of your enemies and you fire off that smoke bomb, or you're hitting those lightning chains, you're going to deal way more damage. And also, it lasts for a long time, because it does seem to be affected by your control bonus that you have. So when you're going from group to group, you're going to constantly have that combat advantage on all the enemies. Invisible Infiltrator. When you use a daily power, your stealth meter is refilled. Like I said, I use the stealth meter to trigger other abilities, so getting that stealth back right away is really nice. And the damage output from this is nice as well. As you can see, it stacks more damage. I did test Oppressive Darkness because there were changes to piercing damage with this last update. However, it doesn't appear that the power Oppressive Darkness actually does very well at all. I checked the combat log. It deals like, I don't know, what was it, like 900 damage? It was useless. Like, if it did as the tooltip states, then yes, oh yes, would you want to run Oppressive Darkness just to get that extra damage output. Alright, so we did companions. Let's move to mounts. Mounts, I do have a Tensor's Disc, so I use the Combat Power Tensor's Transformation. Equip Power, need that armor pen for this latest update, so yes, I do have that. And then of course, since I do have a legendary mount, I do have that 140% speed increase. I don't know if it actually makes a difference, but it does seem that the animation for this guy, the Axebeak, doesn't take as long as the animations for other mounts. So I've been using him just to help move around faster throughout the map. I could be seeing things, but I think it does help. For my mounts, I'm running the Tugan Courser just for Artificer's Persuasion. I do have other mounts that gives it to me, but he just made it in there somehow. If you look at most of my insignias, you're going to notice that they're insignias of skill, aggression, and mastery. Those are the only things that I feel benefit the Trickster Rogue, because if you do the insignia of dominance, you're getting companion influence, which doesn't make a large difference, and the only thing you're getting out of it's power. Stack power somewhere else. Recovery and you get recovery and control bonus, especially for this build. That control bonus is nice. And then, of course, with aggression, you're getting action point gain and armor pen, both nice. Skill, critical strike, and combat advantage. With this added combat advantage, this allows you to pick your artifacts a little differently. So if you wanted to get some artifacts with control bonus because you already hit your 1200 cap in combat advantage, this is going to allow you to do so. And even my enlightens are split between skill and mastery. And the same goes with my illuminated. It's got mastery. But insignia bonuses, if you notice, Artificer's Persuasion, definitely. Assassin's Covenant. If you're really having trouble surviving, you can try and switch to something else if you want. Especially if you're having trouble surviving, maybe go with Gladiator's Guile, so you can dodge out of there more frequently. It will have an effect because of that stamina gain against those boons that give you that power and recovery buff. Protector's Friendship and Protector's Camaraderie. Protector's Camaraderie does not stack well with Protector's Camaraderie. It actually stacks better if you just choose Friendship. Now do keep in mind, if you do this, you are missing an insignia slot, so be prepared to lose out on that extra 200 main stat and 100 secondary stat. So, you know, if you don't want that extra 4% damage or extra 4% power, you can look at other things. He's interchangeable. This one, Cavalry's Warning. When you use a mount combat power, you gain an increased 10% of those stats. This is pretty much like having a Tensor's Disc, so that's why I go with it. Now, it only works when you have a combat power, so you do have to have a mount that has that ability. So some of you may not be able to use that, so you could switch that out with, say, what's that other one? Let's find out, huh? Let's take a look, shall we? The other one I'm thinking about with this type of build that will work well is, Wanderer's Fortune. Switch that out every once in a while. Check out my video on Wanderer's Fortune on my YouTube channel. It goes into explanation on here. The other one, Shepherd's Devotion. That one's not bad to have. I have tested that out. It does help your teammates. If you want to do a quick swap, if you're in a bad pug, go for it. That does help. And of course, that defense deflection goes to you as well. That will help your Assassin's Covenant as well as your survivability. But the other one, where are you hiding? What am I looking for here? Magister's Patience. I tried it. I wasn't a big fan. Combatant's Maneuver. There we go. Whenever you control an enemy, which we're doing with this build, you gain 5% combat advantage damage for 10 seconds. I do want to test this again because it doesn't make... I mean, it does make sense and it doesn't make sense. The dazes from your dazing strike, of course, will count as give you combat advantage when you do that. So this could still help there. But 5% damage increase, especially with combat advantage, isn't very much. But like I said, if you can't do Cavalry's Warning, you can go ahead and try Combatant's Maneuver in there. Other than that, I mean, I've tested with this build a different rotation, and that's the really nice thing about this build is it kind of doesn't matter which one you use, which encounter power you use in that order. I'll go and show real quick. Now, you could base it off of damage output. I've tried testing it. It doesn't seem to make a difference. I ran several different tests with it. What? Did everybody just clear everything out of here? Good lord. You could do your blitz first, and that will trigger your dazes and stuns sometimes. If you do your smoke bomb, though, it's going to hit quicker and guarantee you're hitting those concussive strikes, so that way they're controlled and you're dealing more damage. The biggest thing in the rotation is just like any rotation that you use Whirlwind of Blades with, you want to stealth, Whirlwind of Blades, and then use your encounter. Now here's the other thing though, is that if you do use Smoke Bomb to trigger the concussive strikes first, which you do see they proc pretty quickly, you are going to be losing out on the damage of your Smoke Bomb a bit. Because if you trigger it with your Blitz, which doesn't deal as much damage as your Smoke Bomb is going to be able to come back and melt them quicker. Dazing Strike does not hit enough enemies when you're running into a group, so I do not recommend initializing with anything other than Smoke and Blitz, because you're not going to hit all your enemies in the back. See, I missed 2 of them back there, and so they didn't get affected by those concussive strikes. Now, unfortunately, the lightning does not chain the strike, so when you hit with lightning, you're not going to daze enemies with that lightning. Whoa, that was some lag. But as you can see, I mean, we got some other guy fighting him here. But you're going to use your Duelist Flurry to take out the big enemies in a group. He's probably going to come down here. I'll let him take out them. I'll go find some enemies down here. There's so many people in this instance. It was empty when I first started this. There's always plenty of enemies down here. Alright, these guys aren't the best example, but Blitz, we hit all of them except for one. But partial paralysis does work. If you notice that we did not hit him with a direct hit, but the lightning chain hit him, the paralysis rings that you get out of Chult will still trigger it off the lightning chain, which is part of the reason why this build doesn't need those rings, but definitely benefits from them. Let's find a bigger group of mobs here. This will actually be better to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So like these big Raptor Rider guys. So I'm going to Duelist Flurry this guy because he's got more health points. As I'm hitting him, the chains of lightning are going to help clear out the mobs. I don't want to use Duelist on some of these weaker mobs because it kills them too quickly. I won't get enough chains, so they get attacked by the big AoE attacks, and then the guy with more hit points or more damage resistance is going to be taking the Duelist Flurry. So one thing you'll notice is that the range on this isn't overly great. Sometimes the range on Blitz is medium range. So if you roll into the middle and drop your smoke bomb, you're actually going to hit more targets. But you're also going to deal more damage with that smoke bomb. Man, people are in here killing off all these mobs. If you hit with Blitz first, I can't see a difference really, like I said, but I feel if you hit with Blitz first, hit all these enemies, you get your concussive strikes going, you drop your smoke, you can just run around in circles while your smoke melts them away. Clean up with the dazing strike, hit the bigger guy with your lightning, And your paralysis rings is going to help keep them dazed, so you're not going to be taking damage. Your bark shield is going to help keep you alive, especially when you tag more groups. And yes, that is another bonus of the lightning, is you're going to be able to draw all of the aggro in. And as a Trickster Rogue, you usually don't want to do that, but with you stunning the hell out of these guys, with your deflect up high, if you've got the bark shield, you've got the lifesteal, you're going to be able to handle them coming at you. I haven't even been using my artifact in rotation. I haven't been using my doohickey. I haven't been using my mount power. I haven't had to. I use it when I get into sticky situations where I draw a lot of ads into me, but especially in this instance, there's nothing. Everybody's killing everything off. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter what order you do things in, other than Whirlwind of Stealth, Whirlwind of Blades, Blitz, Smoke. You can do whatever you want, but I guess the best rotation, and I'll do it here in a moment, if you really need one. Like I said, you don't have to have one, but if you really need one, let me get my daily going here. Get back over here. He's always running away. Alright, so we got our daily back. Let's find a group. Didn't mean to hit that. People, quit killing everything. Let me find a mob. People really want that Batari's trinket, apparently. Alright, let's kill these dinosaurs. So Stealth, Whirlwind of Blades. It will trigger concussive strikes, and you probably want to use Dazing Strike because of your mobs. Because you're only going to get that AoE with Dazing Strike if you have that available. So you could even prime it if you wanted to. Let me get my daily back up. The only reason I don't like focusing on rotations very much is because there's too many contingencies, and when you're fighting a lot of mobs, you can't be really dependent on everything hitting its mark. But we can do it this way. Smoke, guarantee that concussive. Stealth, Whirlwind of Blades, then Dazing Strike. Clean up with the Blitz, hit the big guy with Duelist to clean out the rest of the mobs. That would be the perfect rotation, but then you gotta just wait for everything to come back in order. But that's why I love this build. It can be lethal even without having it. If you notice, we still have combat advantage damage from our infiltrator's action. If you notice, if I don't hit him, he doesn't die as quickly, but I am able to kill off other people. Get my combat advantage back. Get that back. Melt things down. Kill this big guy. And just melt through these things. My smoke's still doing work. So yeah, play with that build all you want. Like I said, once I get the boons from this, I will do a follow-up video to let you know which one's the best. But yeah, just play around with it, see what fits you best. But, control when dealing with mobs is going to be effective. Just make sure that if you're in a dungeon, switch out to something a little better at single point, just to, kill that boss faster. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe, share the video, hit that bell icon, all the yada yada yada. Do whatever you want. Thanks and have a good night.